Start off with staff noting the presence of a quorum, please.
Mr. Boniface?
Present.
Mr. Jorge?
Here.
Mr. Khan?
Here.
Dr. Keen?
Here.
Ms. Carlson?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Mooney?
Here.
Mr. Neal?
Present.
And Mr. Woodard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a full house. There are no changes to tonight's agenda. It's full of all kinds of fun things to do. Fortunately, many of them are on a consent agenda. Taking us on to approval of the minutes of our November 6th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion regarding these minutes?
Motion to approve November 6 minutes. Second.
The motion was from Billy Bunkefast, was it?
Yes, sir.
And the second was
Mr. Woodard.
Mr. Woodard. We're all present, so we can do this on a voice vote. Everybody in favor of approving the November 6th minutes, respond with an aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed or abstaining? Minutes are approved. If staff could now please review the rules of procedure for tonight's meeting.
Yep, so tonight's meeting is a workshop meeting, so just a few things to cover. First, the department will introduce the petition, stating when the item was last before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission and petitioner will then discuss the changes made to the ordinance using the issue list as a guide for the discussion. Once the discussion has finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition returning for a recommendation. Just some rules of conduct for this evening. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. We would like to remind those attending virtually to please mute your microphone when not speaking. And that's all for tonight.
Thank you. Moving on, as I indicated, we have a consent agenda that has 5 wonderful items on it, all ready for our approval. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Second. Go ahead. We have a motion from Mike Neal, as I heard it.
Yes,
And a second was Victor McCarty. Staff could please call the roll.
Mr. Boniface?
Yes.
Mr. Jorge?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Dr. Keen?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
And Mr. Woodard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Consent agenda items all approved. There are no items of business, taking us to the first of 3 workshop items tonight. First of which is Finley Creek Estates Planned Unit Development. Petition is 2408-PUD-19. Are the Finley Creek folks ready to take a seat at the head of the table, please? First have a intro from Weston, and then any additional comments that the petitioner's team would like to offer, and then we'll get into the workshop discussion.
Blocking the screen for anybody.
I think you're good for now. Okay, so yeah, we'll just provide a brief introduction. Thank you, President, members of the Commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the Finley Creek Estates Planned Unit Development District. This rezone request is to establish the zoning district for a new single-family residential community. The real estate is roughly 44 acres in size. It's located northeast of the intersection at Fremont Moore Road and West 193rd Street. This proposed ordinance would permit a maximum of 80 single-family homes to be developed on the property. This item was last before the Plan Commission at the September 16th workshop meeting. Since then, the petitioner has made a few changes. I'll just briefly cover a few of those changes right now. The first is the site plan was updated to reduce the number of lots from 85 to 80, and the entrance off of Fremont Moore Road was removed. The minimum lot width standards were updated for the northwest portion of the property, the lots you see in purple or pink up there. And the architectural standards for highly visible lots were slightly modified as well. So the petitioner is here this evening. They plan to provide a project update to the Plan Commission members. And with that, petitioner and staff are both available to answer any questions, should there be any from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner's team, please.
Yeah, so thank you all for having us again. Dominic Dreyer with Arbor Homes. I have Sean Downey and Dylan Lee here as well from Arbor and Silverthorne Homes. As Weston provided the update, the largest change we have made here is we've eliminated the connection to Fremont Moore Road as well as made transitional lot sizes from 70 feet as you go. So our concept plan, just to orient everyone, north is over here. That goes from east to west, 70-foot wide lots to 80-foot wide lots, which are designated by the purple on the updated concept plan. I know that was a big item of a discussion at the September meeting about how development going west, even further out, further from this site, wanting larger lots, larger lots going out there, and as development continues, and that was hopefully our intent to do that with these large changes. Is there anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think just kind of elaborating on, the discussion points on infrastructure and roads. We feel by eliminating the entrance out to Fremont Moore, that, that we still have two connection points, 193rd and then into the Atwater development, but we won't be promoting any traffic out there onto Fremont Moore Road directly, so.
Again, go ahead.
As you said, in addition, I know the development to the south that Platinum had approved, or that Platinum took through, they transitioned their home sites, the sites that bordered the Moore State lots to the west were a minimum of 80 feet wide. So that was our intent with, bordering more rural estate lots to yield that transition.
Okay. Any other updates you'd like to elaborate on for us, or no?
I don't think so. I mean, happy to discuss these and feedback on that.
Okay, commissioners, time for a workshop. Questions or comments for the petitioner's team or staff or both?
Just like the previous meeting, I want to thank you for your work on this. It certainly, with the taking out the access to Fremont Moore Road, changed the character of the development a little bit to make it similar to what had been previously discussed. Just from what I've heard, unfortunately though, this hasn't really swayed the needle either which way, whether it be a more favorable or less favorable. I believe for my fellow counselors, it's still about the same consensus of where they stand, of similar to what we discussed last time. So that's just really what I had to say here. Again, though, don't want to diminish the work that you've put into it. So,
Thank you.
Tell me about, just to make sure, I've looked at it, but I just wanna make sure from you guys. So one of my biggest concerns about this project was the amenities. I think the last time we had seen it, and I did see some are added. I just want you guys to go through what was added from the garden, which was, I think, last time the only amenity that was there.
Yeah, I can just go over the amenities that we have shown currently. We've got the this central around that kind of circle there. It's about a little under 0.8 acres of active play area. There will also be a playground in that circle area, as well as a gazebo, some type of gathering area. And again, we do have that community garden designated spot at the south side. Having it turn kind of always throws me. And a trail going out to that. As far as the amenities there, we you know, I know there was discussion of activating other areas. We really see this as a very small, 80 lot development. We don't wanna overburden any future HOA. As well as just the geometry of the site. I don't know if it lends its will to many more amenities than this, but happy to discuss it more.
No, I'm just happy there were some. I agree that it's small, so adding a building, adding, a pool might be a little much. But this is certainly a step up for me from just the community garden, which I thought was a cool concept, it just couldn't be the only concept for my approval. And I hear my fellow commissioner and counselor to the right, obviously the job of this board and the job of the council will be a little bit different in how we see things. And so I would trust the council to do their job and they'll trust us to do ours. But at this point, I think barring any other crazy thing that comes up, I see this as something that I could, support in its current-ish form.
Yeah, I also wanna bounce off of that from Mike, that I wanna thank you for adding the amenities to that. And also what you've done with that section of, cutting off from the line. I think you've adhered to a lot of neighbors' concerns with that and adding, larger lots along that way to blend in. I think that it's a good effort. Thank you very much for that.
I have a question. What I'm colorblind, so help me out a little bit. But are those purple or mauve or
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Magenta, I don't
Thank
know.
you. Yeah.
Purple, like
The-
Yeah.
Sorry. Can we go through the home character imagery changes in the purple area? Are there character substantive character exhibit changes?
I don't believe we changed anything. to
So it's the
there.
same
It's a-
house, bit different, bigger lot.
Yes.
And what was, do you have in the character exhibits, are there any rear elevations?
I don't believe so. I don't believe those are.
No, I don't believe so. And that's where we've committed to those high visibility,
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got your high visibility lots here.
Yeah.
That's, really speaking to, accenting these homes for these existing residents here, so.
And help me out understand that a little bit better, cause I've lost that in detail somewhere.
Pull it up 1 second.
The high visibility part, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm too, that's a good question.
And out of curiosity, why did those, on the magenta lots, why did those not swing around to pick up the northern property there? Yeah, mainly there, yeah.
We received some input from staff that really was speaking to providing
Okay.
some extra rear commitments that were adjacent to these out parcels here,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, this area here is platted as estate lots right now. So this recently, if we can pull up GIS, but these are large lots through here. So that was the idea.
Like 3 acre, 5 acre.
Something around there.
And then the rear building facade for those high visibility lots, the requirement would be either a sunroom, screened in porch, covered patio, covered porch, 4-foot deep offset off the rear, or a masonry wainscot would be the minimum on all 4 sides would be the minimum for those.
Chris is through, I'll jump in and kind of dovetail off of that with a question I've had. Do you typically have buyers that request basements, or does this site even support being able to have a basement space?
No, I mean, really when we look at the basement buyer, I mean, typically that's, a small percentage, but it's an option that's definitely available to anybody who asks for it, so this would be a community that I think would be open to those same, buying options, so we've not seen any geotech that shows any groundwater issues or anything that we might be concerned with, high groundwater table and people's sumps running more often, so.
But dovetailing off of that, your data sounds like a very small percentage of your buyers tend to wanna spend money on a basement,
I mean,
which then means do more of them perhaps than otherwise might want to have a third car garage. And the point of the question is, you've asked to have a reduced setback. When you have a third car garage, wondering how many third car garages are you gonna have? Is it gonna look like we've actually just reduced the setback in general? Can you point to any historical data on your sales that might lead you to believe half of these houses may actually have that third car garage and be a candidate for a reduction in the side yard setback? Or is it gonna be a little more or a little less, or are all your communities different?
yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have the data here this evening to speak to that. So that's, you know, but I can tell you when you talk about basements, that's usually a, you know, a smaller percentage. But, you know, the one thing we are leaning on in this community, with it being kind of a smaller subdivision, with a higher product, you know, we do have these 80-foot lots in the back that we would hope that, you know, we might see more basement purchases than, you know, in a larger 300 lot subdivision to speak of, so.
My concern would be on the smaller lots. Are those the candidates that might say, geez, I need a little more space, I'm not gonna spend the money for a basement, so third car garage is a whole lot less, let's go ahead and have one of those. And especially when you're on the points of the curve where the front of the lot is smaller than the back, your reduction of 5 feet, I think could be potentially significant. So I'm not sure how we will process that in final analysis, but it's not gonna be favorable if it becomes.
Have you ever seen anything in the past, Bob, where there was a limitation on amounts? Or is there any
I don't recall any,
conversation that's been around that?
I don't recall that we've ever tried to legislate or include some sort of a commitment to having basements or third car garages, yes or no, either way. The point of the setbacks is to assure that there's adequate space from one house to another, and if we start allowing a reduction because somebody wants a third car, maybe not for, you know, third car garage, maybe not so much for a car, but because they need space.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a third car garage, but I do have a basement. If I was buying today, I would still absolutely want a basement, but I'm probably not your buyer, I guess, if that's the case. I'm just concerned that we might have, especially in, it seems like we're all pack rats today, there's so many self-storage spaces. Are these people gonna have things that they're gonna need to store and will wanna have conveniently in a garage? I would just like a little more comfort that if there could possibly be some statistics that you find between now and the recommendation meeting in a couple of weeks, whenever it turns out to be, what is your sales history?
I think we can give you some more detail also on the width of our homes, cause not every width of our home is, let's say you have for a 70-foot home site, you have 50-foot wide home, 10-foot garage, or in addition to that, so I would say most of our homes are between that 40 and 50-foot range, and so a lot of the homes that you may walk in and say, hey, I like this floor plan, that is not necessarily gonna infringe on the side yard setback. There's probably a couple, and it's mostly ranch plans, which are the wider plans that are may infringe on the side yard setback.
But just to bounce off his question, I am wondering, and just for my own education, in the larger lots, would we have an issue with people wanting a third car garage, or do you have like a way to enhance the product? Do you have a, you know, because it's a larger lot, they may be able to, you know, and want to build more on that. Do you have any options for them for that?
If someone walks in the door, they can make those choices.
Okay.
So if you were to walk in, you could say, I'd like a 4-foot, you know, garage bump out, a 6-foot garage bump out. Even within the home, there's structural choices that you can make to widen the home or deepen the home.
Okay.
So those are all options that the consumer can make.
Thank you.
Might be helpful to see a 3-car garage on a character exhibit.
On a ranch and a two-story.
Dr. Keen appears to have a
Yeah,
question.
I've seen the floor now. I kinda wanted to dovetail off Chris's
I
questions,
just
they were
sure you
kinda
saw it.
related, so yeah, other commissioners, please jump in now.
I expressed this before, I'll say it again, even with these changes that you've made. This appears to me to be an infill project that's not in an infill area. In 2024, where we're at in Westfield and development, and this is on the edge of the comp plan between the suburban and the 3 acre lots. This doesn't elevate Westfield, in my opinion. This is a nice development. I've seen your developments in other places here in Westfield, you have a nice product, but I don't see this being the right fit in this area. If everything else around it were developed and then you came back with this and it fit with everything else around, not just Atwater, cause we can talk about Atwater for a long time, it was done before most of us were on this committee. It just doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't have a lot of green space, it doesn't have a lot of amenities. It's a nice development, putting in a lot of houses. And that's all it does. It doesn't elevate this area at all. So it's hard for me to say, as we're moving further west and further north, that this is a good development for future development to build upon.
Thank you. Brian, Stephanie? Questions, comments for petitioner or staff?
No, I just know you mentioned the comp plan, and if I can remember correctly from last time, most of the yellow area fits in the comp plan, the purple or magenta area does not. So, and if we're sticking with the comp plan, you know, given that was designed for housing, I think the yellow area fits in that. I'm not sure about the purple area, but I do like the larger lots in the purple area. And I do like the fact that you're not going out onto Fremont Road. So that's just it fits what it needs to fit, except for that lower area. I always like more amenities. I think green space is great. If you can add some more in, it's always a benefit.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'd echo Dr. Keene's sentiment. I think I shared the same sentiment the last go around. I think we've been in a unique position this APC has on how to deal with different fringe spaces as it relates to the comprehensive plan. And I think this northwest corridor of the comprehensive plan, or at least to Dr. Keene's point, the division point between the two areas, it caters more to the estate style home on this fringe point, where perhaps a fringe point on 146 or a fringe point on 32 or whatever it may be may cater to a little more density. And so I think I echo the sentiment that this just doesn't feel like the right fit at this time.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions, comments, petitioner or staff? If not, what sort of?
I have one last comment.
Please.
I think it would be, and to answer back to, I generally agree with what you both are saying as well. But I would say from a character exhibit, when you bring it back, I would also show the transition that you're making from the home type in Atwater to what you're doing here. Right? Because there is a significant change in product. Right? So I think that that's a story that needs to be told.
And my personal feeling is just if it's larger lots, maybe you should have, you know, explore larger homes and, you know, be able to take advantage of that space, you know, even with more options. I mean, that may help, it may still not, you know, according to some folks' belief on the character of the area, but I think if you have larger lots in that particular sector, it may help blend in, at least in that part.
If there are no other commissioner questions or comments, the staff have a wrap up.
Yep, we'll just provide a brief wrap up here. This discussion, with it being the second workshop, there is a lot of clarifications provided, a lot of feedback provided. But a few of the really the one action item I remember is that there's a discussion about the setback reductions and the frequency of those setback reductions. The idea of showing a 3-car garage on a character exhibit to understand what that looks like. We talked about amenities. We talked about comp plan discussion, talked about rear elevations on homes, if there's an opportunity to understand that further. And then the review of potentially providing larger homes on the larger lots in lieu of the same product throughout the entirety of the site. But beyond those action items or further clarifications, I think it was just plan commission feedback and question and answers. So did I miss anything? Anybody want anything additional?
Anybody has any thoughts? I think that covers what we talked
Just
about. There
do you
wasn't
guys-
that much.
Yeah, petitioner, do you have any further questions that you'd like answered at this time or anything?
think so.
Okay.
Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you back at the future first Monday meeting for recommendation, whatever it is that you are ready, and have the feedback from tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Transition.
Look at it, just forget that fact. I'm like, wait a minute.
Our second workshop item tonight is Claiborne Farms, also known as Kimblewick, Phase 3. Edition is 2409-PUD-20.
I think we're just uploading the presentation right now, so it should be just. So,
If I could just have 32 minutes to open the exhibits on my side, that'd be great.
Whose idea was to change this?
Somebody smarter than me, Chris, somebody smarter than me.
I'm texting them right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have been the entire evening.
Yeah.
One of the things I just discovered that is needing done and should have been done before the rollout is in going to the GIS, and you can overlay lots of things, one of which is the zoning, so clicking on Atwater to refresh my memory on what the Atwater got me, hey, we can't find that.
The planning department's really good at this. They were showing me that they rely on some old school GIS too, so that was earlier this afternoon.
So if we could just have access to the comprehensive plan again, that would also be good. We can make note of that.
No more access to that hanging around.
I couldn't find it in my initial research. Some picture I Googled document center and it's all there, not anymore.
Seek out and
Yeah.
figure out how to save them again.
And then you can't get to the city website when you get to Google.
Oh, which is what I just did as you said that. I tried to backdoor it.
I tried several times today.
Got
You
me.
can't get there.
Alright, well,
That's funny, Scott said this was a couple weeks away.
I've been having this chat too.
okay.
Because I have a lot of constituents who are people that I care about. You can't get to the website.
Seems like this will allow us to have premature. Anyway,
No, you.
sorry about that, everyone.
It's a big website.
welcome back. So we're moving on to Claiborne. We'll have a intro from Ryan and then comments from the petitioner. And then we'll have discussion.
Let John drive.
Oh, thanks. Let's get the road in the right place, huh?
Right. Alright, thank you, President, and good evening, members of the APC. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item in front of you this evening is the second workshop discussion for the Claiborne Farms Kimblewick Phase 3 Planning and Development District. As a refresher, this rezone request is to establish the zoning for an extension of the existing Kimblewick residential community. The subject real estate is about 87 acres in size and is generally located north of and adjacent to 151st Street and east of Shelbourne Road. Since the petition's first workshop on October 21st, there have been several modifications several modifications seen within the project proposal. Number one being entry modifications off of 151st Street. Two being additional tree preservation and buffering efforts and modifications. And three being other various changes to the concept plan as seen within Exhibit 5 that address some of the outstanding questions and concerns from impacted residents. This petition had its council first reading on August 26th, a public hearing at the APC's first September meeting, an APC workshop discussion at the APC's second October meeting, and finally a second workshop discussion at tonight's meeting. There have been additional communication that has come in through the general public since the petition's first workshop in October. compilation of all public correspondence sent in by Thursday of last week, since the petition submittal in August, can be seen within Exhibit 6. For the comments that have come in since Friday of last week, I have printed out the remaining comments for each of the APC members this evening, and you all should have packets in front of you. The petitioner and their representative are both here tonight. They will be providing an update of the materials and are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
For the
Floor is
record,
yours.
for the record, John Dabashay with Nelson and Frankenberger. We're here on behalf of Pulte Homes of Indiana, Rex Ramage with Pulte, and Jim Sherner, our attorney with our office, are also present. I'm gonna go through a few things to kind of pick us up to where we were in advance of today's meeting, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Rex, cause he had a meeting with some residents on site with regard to some landscaping requirements that we're gonna add on to address the concerns they had about that buffer between Kimballwick existing and proposed, as well as options regarding amenities that are now out in the public that we're gonna walk the plan commission through and look for feedback regarding those items. Staff did a good job of kind of wrapping things up to where we're at. I'll go through a few items just to bring everybody up. This area outlined in white, this is the original Kimballwick from 2019. This is a 40 additional lot space that was zoned at the beginning of this year, reviewed by the Plan Commission late last year. The 87 acres is the area shown here in orange. Originally, when filed and presented to the Plan Commission, included this additional 22 acres, which had a single cul-de-sac accessing Shelbourne Road with a different home product. The balance of the home product that's remaining today is all the age-restricted Del Webb home product in this space here, not including the 22 acres, which had more traditional two-story homes on a single cul-de-sac. But again, that area's been removed because what could not be accomplished on that real estate that could be accomplished on this was the enhancement of buffers, so that we're providing enhanced buffers along the exterior perimeter, so we're maintaining the character and quality of that transition that took place within Kimballwick through this space, and we're not affecting the character of development along Shelbourne Road. Let's see if I... this shows the original plan that was presented. There's the 22 acres that I talked about that's removed. The amended plan, there we go. You can see here, one of the primary changes from the plan that we presented at the last workshop meeting was that we amended the location of the pathway connection to the existing trail here to be on site and within the tree preservation area rather than outside of that area where more visible within the open space area of the existing Kimballwick development. We also adjusted the location that it would come in and intersect the internal roadway network. As you can see here, this identifies an existing legal drain that crosses the site, these dash lines. And that's gonna go away with the development of the real estate as it went away with the development of Kimballwick. There'll no longer be an existing tile and legal drain. It would be picked up here in the pond, then piped, and then discharged as part of the overall stormwater network for the development. So this existing legal drain will no longer cross the site, it'll be amended. But because it exists there today, there's some openings in the trees which exist right here and in one other location that I'll have Rex identify. And that's was the result of a meeting he had last Friday with some residents on additional trees that'll be planted to help supplement what's there today within that buffer. Another change that took place after communication that we had with some other stakeholders was the positioning here at the entrance of lots 1 and 2. Previously, there was a longer median island that went further north into development, and there was concern about access to those lots 1 and 2 because it had a situation where you had to enter the development and then do a U-turn to come back to access driveways. So that's been redesigned so that both lot 1, which was removed and moved over here, lot 1 was actually removed and it was moved to another location within the development. And then this is about where lot 2 started. So now all the lots are accessed. You don't have to do that U-turn at the entrance to the development to access someone's driveway. It's all clear at that location. This is a slide that's been updated to show the new layout. We just talked about the dimensions and a lot of additional setbacks. 600 feet here to the closest house, where originally there was a 50-foot buffer here with lots adjacent to it, which about cut that in half. A 200-foot space here where that was smaller previously. There was a 50-foot buffer along the existing Kimballwick development, and now that's a minimum of 150 feet. It tapers in right here because of the width of the real estate to about 120 feet rather than 150 in tree preservation, and then a dimension here to show 350 feet between homes and a 60-foot tree preservation area along our south perimeter. The big change that took place, if you're familiar with that area and you drive down Town Road, you can see, and 151st Street, you can see that on the north side of the street, there's a long expanse and it has a 6-foot to 8-foot mound with landscaping and the 4-board fence. And the neighbors that were on the south side of 151st Street within existing Kimballwick lots had suggested their preference for maintaining the existing tree line that they would see out their back windows, and not have a situation where that was all removed and replaced with a 8-foot mound and planting. So the existing tree line along that space, 60 feet of it, will be maintained along that north side of the property. We'll still extend the sidewalk, or path rather, as it ends here today. We'll extend that path along the frontage all the way to this perimeter. Another component of the plan is that Pulte will improve, as they have improved Shelbourne Road, or rather 151st Street, as they've improved 151st Street. Those improvements will extend across this frontage and all the way over to Shelbourne Road, with the type of treatment that you see today that's replaced the existing 151st Street. This is an exhibit that we've updated to show this headlight view. Previously the design was over here and we were going in the back of lots. They've adjusted that. Rex met on site last Friday and they walked the area. They agreed to additional plantings. I can walk through a couple of those pieces now since we have the slide up. There is an existing area where they're gonna add in that space here. So right here in this area, in addition to the plantings that are there, they're gonna add 28 additional trees, both evergreen and deciduous. And then they're gonna work with a consulting arborist. They've identified Judd Scott as the arborist that they would work with to help determine what exact species would be appropriate in there to provide the greatest screen along that area so that it screens headlights from view. There is an existing mound that runs across here, but it's a little shallower as you get close to the existing crossing where the creek crosses here today. So there's additional plantings that they're gonna install there. The plantings the other two locations of plantings that'll be installed is right here. There's an opening. And in that space, they're gonna add an additional 21 trees in 3 staggered rows to maximize screening. Where was the other location, Rex?
Just to the north here. So for the
Right.
record, Rex Ramage at Pulte. The third area is kind of right in here. And the idea here was you had some residents that were backing up to this area that had these open corridors or view sheds into what would be the proposed development.
And that's an area where they're gonna add 5 additional trees. It was just, they walked that whole tree line with some of the neighbors who live along these lots here. And they felt like that was a reasonable accommodation to get into that space. And again, this is in addition to the 150 foot of tree preservation and 350 foot setback across the lake through the trees. But to supplement them here, because that legal drain is gonna go away, and then supplement additional plantings in that location. This is just an exhibit we updated that shows the back a lot. And then this exhibit actually shows where we were at our last workshop meeting. You can see that lot 1 and 2 right here. It was blocked by the existing median. So a modification was made again to move a lot up into this space, 1 lot, and then lot 2 would be the first lot to reorient so that you wouldn't have to cross the median to access the parcel. I think I'll leave this one up and we wanna talk a minute. This is information that's new for tonight's meeting. It's kind of been circulated with some of the neighbors and some other stakeholders. And Pulte's come up with 3 options regarding amenities. And the first option regarding amenities is that Pulte would contribute to the Kimballwick HOA reserve an amount of $6,667 when each lot goes into effect. Why is that important? Because it took the commitment that they made it would be $1 million, but it's actually, if you do the math, it's $1,050,000. But that would be in place at the time individual homes were built, and that would go to the HOA. The HOA then would decide how they wanna supplement their existing amenities in whatever manner as a collective, all the residents within the community would determine that would be made. The second option would be the donation of the existing sales center. The existing sales center is 2 lots removed from the clubhouse, so there's the main clubhouse, if you've been out there. South of that is a vacant lot where they have some parking for the sales use, and then there's a sales model. And there was discussion amongst owners within Kimballwick that might be a good option because there's not a kitchen facilities within if I'm correct, there's not kitchen facilities within the facility. They can, it's a warming kitchen, so they thought maybe that would be a good place to expand the opportunities that they have to serve the residents, both a secondary location for meetings or use, as well as kitchen facilities. The third option would be the donation or dedication by Pulte of Block 1. And Block 1's right here, and the Plan Commission has heard previously, a few of the neighbors suggest that Block 1 should be made available to the HOA for the construction of future amenities. But again, we don't know what that is, and we don't have control over the third party, which is the HOA group, to make a determination. What's the future look like for them? So Pulte set aside these 3 options, option A, B, and A, B, and C, as I've described them, so that the HOA can make a decision. We'll put that in the ordinance. We'll establish a trigger for when that decision would need to be made, and then would proceed accordingly based upon the decision of the HOA. Wanted to make sure I reviewed everything with you that we've advanced in the last 30 days.
So just real quick to add some quick context before we, relinquish our time here. The conversation surrounding the amenities was something that we all talked last time, and it was kind of one of those open items that we really didn't have a good answer for. So we kind of took all of the conversations we've had to date since the inception of the project, and we've kind of just said, look, these are 3 viable options that the community needs to kind of decide on. There was some conversation about, who's is the city gonna referee this whole thing, or is this an agreement between Pulte and the Kimballwick residents? And so I think if you polled various different people throughout the community, someone had very strong opinions for or against one of the 3 options that we've laid out. But what we want to do is, as John mentioned, figure out what those options are and then set a time that all the residents can vote on it. Because what we don't want to do is have the squeaky wheel get the grease, or the minority choosing for the collective group. So just to add a little bit of context to that conversation, we wanted to provide 3 different options that we thought were suitable.
And that decision would occur before development of the real estate, so it would be the residents who live there today, not after development of the real estate. So it's what the current existing residents feels is appropriate for development on the real estate.
Are you through? Any other?
No other updates?
That's all the updates. Interesting package of things. Good to know that those options are out there, and I can't imagine anybody in this room would feel differently, but this needs to be between Pulte and the existing residents. Please leave us out of trying to figure that out, because there's a lot of difference of opinions, and I don't think any of us would want to be in a position of having to make a choice on anybody else's behalf, but secure what you can as far as some sort of agreement there, and have all the options laid out in your ordinance, and we'll figure that out as the time comes along. So, questions, comments for petitioner or staff from other Plan Commission members?
Yeah, just real quick on the topic of amenities, and I appreciate you running through all of the updates since the last time. Last time you were before us, I did mention that maybe the discussion of amenities has kind of fallen outside of our purview, so I appreciate you offering the 3 options for the residents to kind of decide their own fate, if you will, because they are the closest to the issue at hand on what they might want. So just on the topic of amenities, I appreciate the direction that's going.
Can we talk I'll get my accolades in a second, I'll ask a question first. That's a berm on the south end.
Yes, sir.
In the conversations, 'cause I have read every single email, every single one, and they're all pretty much the same about almost all of it, which is amazingly incredible that everyone's pretty well locked up. I think the question that they were talking about, and maybe it's just because they're so particular about this, which I can understand, is what you're proposing there going to help with, at first it was the direct light and then it was the sweep. Right, when someone turned left or someone turned right, it still was gonna sweep into somebody's house or patio. Do you feel like the conversation you had with folks regarding what you have was well received? As acceptable to them, or not saying they'll make my decision based on that, I just am curious if they felt like this was enough, or are they saying no, they're still kind of against whatever you might be planning there on that 151st berm on the south end?
Yeah, so we met Friday. I think the group on along 151st Street, there were, let's call it 15 to 20 people there. I would say more than half were strongly, you need to rebuild us a mound that is of a certain height to block headlights, but we don't feel that that's the best solution for them because they already have an established landscape buffer. They have a very well manicured mound with landscaping that's already, taking growth, etc. It's irrigated, all that fun stuff. So we've done this before. We actually had to do this on the expansion real estate up in the northeast corner, where we went and walked the tree line with the neighbors, said, hey, here's 2 or 3 trees. Oh, here's a gap. Took some spray painted on the ground. So the short answer to your question is, I think there are people that still would prefer a larger mound, but I think our experience tells us that this is likely a better solution for them, both in the short term and the long term, because they get additional landscaping.
Yeah. The next question I have, the lots 70 through 75, you said you guys expanded that a little bit. Did you just change the orientation of the road just a little bit to get that? Is that essentially how that? I can't tell from the pictures if the degrees got changed a little bit. But, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, to answer that question here, so this is the area in which we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
70,
Yes, sir.
75.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really tell, site plan to site plan,
Right.
but what we did is we reoriented or kind of rotated counterclockwise the degree of the bend in that road.
Okay.
So what that gave us was, before we had, 107 feet from lot line to the edge of the tree preservation, just because we have such a narrow distance in between here to kind of make that connection.
Right.
There was some clamoring prior to the last meeting about why can't we just split the tree preservation 175 and
Yeah.
175? Well, again, we've already established in 2019 that the 200-foot wide buffer on the west perimeter was the 200 feet. So what we did was we tried to hold that as best as we could on the west side. So the change being, as with the rotation of the road, we were able to pick up about 13 to 14 feet at its narrowest point. And the encroachment into the trees on lot 21 is actually greater than the encroachment into the tree preservation on the east side. So effectively, we've tried to take the feedback without changing the overall 200 and 150 foot.
Okay. Let's see. Amenities. I'm very happy with those. Again, I agree. It may have started to get out of our purview, but it's still part of the conversation. I think putting that ball in their court and making them choose their destiny is fantastic. And I think I'd mentioned that as virtual, I think, the first version of this meeting in Texas. And from what I, had been talking about, that 80% starts to feel like a full room and those kind of things. Obviously, this gives them plenty of options. I think my one question is, if they chose the money route, the $1 million, and they chose that they were gonna build something, is there space somewhere for them to build something, whether on this property or on the existing Kimblewicks, if they wanted to expand? So I drove over there, but it was at night, and so I didn't really wanna get out of the car and get arrested for snooping around the grassy areas. But if they took the money and they chose that they wanted to build something, is there space for them to do that?
There would be.
Okay.
Now, I think you'd have to get a little creative in order to do so.
Yeah.
I think part of my, I'll just say mine, not even Pulte's entirely, right? Having visited the amenity area and trying to figure out, okay, if you were to do this, where would you do it? I think it could potentially be a little clunky.
Yeah.
But could you kind of revamp how the site's laid out, yeah. I mean, as an example, we had a small focus group meeting with probably 8 to 10 residents, on various committees and different, tenures within the community, that they had actually organized for us, which was very nice. They shared their different concerns, and one of the questions was, hey, could we build a building where the tennis courts are? And I'm like, well, there's nothing that says you can't.
Sure.
Now you're putting a building that's closer to a row of houses that are immediately behind the tennis courts, so you have to contend with your neighbors who live there that don't have a building behind them currently. So the option, or the answer is yes, it just kind of, you need to be very specific and intentional how you go about doing so.
I just wanna wrap up with a comment, thank you. I had asked in our pre-APC meeting, and you guys may have, we're gonna do it anyway, was the comparison of what originally came here and what we have today, and that difference is substantial. It's a substantial difference, I think it's a better project because of it. I obviously don't speak for my other fellow commissioners, I'm sure they'll speak for themselves here shortly, but I think you guys have done more, I mean, this is my first year on the APC, so I don't know how things always happen in Westfield, but from other boards, you guys have done more than I've ever seen a developer come and do. I appreciate that, I hope that the residents, I know there's a ton of them listening tonight, I'm sure, and welcome and glad you're here as well. Appreciate all the work you've done. I think at the end of the day, I think I'd mentioned this last time, compromise isn't always, it's a dirty word in politics, but it's good for being neighbors. And I think this type of compromise is good and positive. I'm sure there'll be some punch list items as we get to recommendation time. I don't anticipate, I guess, another workshop, but I guess I don't know that for sure, based on how much has been done. But I think this is a better project for the work you've done, and I certainly appreciate all of that. And I think at the end of the day, two things that I read in the emails, and I'll relinquish my time, is, you know, obviously the rural feel of this area. I think that's slowly gonna just continue to change, and we can't expect that everything around these folks is gonna stay rural. And so keeping that in mind, you know, try not to get bogged down in which is it's a reasonable thought. It's just not, it's not what's happening in this area. And one of the things I think I read too was that this should be more of an estate lot section, but I think it's kind of adding, while I know what the comprehensive plan says and we're supposed to, you know, keep an eye towards that, the homes that were existing in Kimblewick wouldn't meet that same line of, you know, the estate lot. So then trying to force that on this when it's essentially supposed to be this kind of holistic community at the end of the day, just again, we already were down this path. If you thought that and you agreed with that position because the comprehensive plan says that, fair enough. But what we're already built already doesn't, I mean, it doesn't really fit with what we're talking about there. So putting that on this, I think, is a little foolish. And so I'm obviously interested in hearing my, you know, I've talked way too long, my fellow commissioners and what they have to say, but thank you for all the work that's been done. I appreciate it.
Just so everyone's aware, Ryan reached out just after the pre-APC meeting, just to make sure that we would update our slides and have those available.
Okay, yeah, we asked, Bob and I asked for that because it's such an, thank you, it's such an important contrast.
It's a striking difference.
It is. I relinquish my time.
Dr. Keen.
I have just a couple of questions or comments. There were a lot of, in stuff we received from the residents, there were a lot of references to paying premiums for certain lots. And those, you know, I'm paying $100,000 more for my lot because it's here. Are those the 70 to 75 lot? Are those the people who paid a premium because they had a great view out back that they didn't want changed, and you're making more dense now?
So I would say the majority of the emails that you're getting with that number attached to it probably fall within this category. The ones that back up to the pond that have the 200-foot buffer with the
Okay.
reforestation, et cetera. Now, mind you, almost every lot in the community has some type of lot premium. But it varies drastically in degree.
The other thing is gonna be, I'm gonna talk about the amenity center. I do appreciate all the work on this. I would just like to make a comment. You've presented 3 options. I think those 3 options could be 9 options because there could be amalgamations of some of those as people move forward. So, you know, you might wanna, well, maybe we wanna take 3,000 extra per lot because we want this, and it's only gonna be a total of this. And so I think that you're gonna have to do some work with the residents, because before this is adopted and put into the ordinance, there needs to be resolution on that. You've got a holiday period coming up, so there's a lot of work I think you have to do about that amenity center. But from a personal standpoint, people who are paying the kind of money they are to move into this area, it's a final house probably for them. There needs to be a good resolution for that amenity center, both for the people who have put their money into this development and those who are coming. So I really encourage you to get on it, working with those residents, let them make the decision, but don't just say A, B, or C. Because it could be half of A and half of B. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, so there's other modifications possible. I hope you're open to, we wanna get resolution, not just these three ideas, cause other people may have better ideas about how to deal with that.
Sure.
And I'm glad they're dealing with it and we're not.
Yes, we heard that loud and clear, and that's why we're trying to at least be able to put something in the ordinance to at least continue the process, because we know that may or may not be ironed out. Thank you for lighting the fire, so to speak. I appreciate everything you just said, so we'll work toward that. I don't know how long it's gonna take, because again, we will hear negative feedback from someone, regardless of what is chosen or what is decided on, right? So I think if it's 51%, majority wins, you know, and that's the option, or the majority of whoever voted, right? You might have 33, and 34% on all three options that are selected, right? And 34% wins at that point. So if that's the path that we're marching down, that's fine. I mean, we can do that. We just wanted to at least provide options and then enough time for the majority of the community to vote in whatever capacity they deem is necessary.
Yeah. I think you have to be careful with that. You give everybody 51 flavors that might go, you know, crazy for more. So, you know, it has to be a certain amount, you know, that you want to stay within. My question is in terms of the tree height for the berms, like when you're planting the trees, how tall are those trees? You know, I'm trying to get to a case because it seems like obviously there's a disconnect there between the residents and you guys of saying, I've done this, which you have, and you're the experts in this field, but you know, would you be able to provide any evidence to explain your experience? And so I'm asking just about the height first and seeing from there.
Sure. So I'll answer that and then I'll maybe I'll add a little color to hopefully anticipate what you're saying. So what we've committed to, or what we will commit to and eventually get to staff here, which I don't think they've seen as of today. Evergreen trees are measured they just measure in height. So we would commit that all these supplemental trees that we discussed about planting, evergreen trees would be a minimum of 8 feet in height at planting. I believe the city ordinance is 6 feet. So we're trying to go above and beyond, and what that really does is it gives her a thicker, fuller base of an evergreen tree to hopefully provide more screening in that, you know, ground to 3 level height, which of course would be probably headlight level, so to speak. Deciduous trees are measured diameter of breast height, so typically 4.5 feet-ish off the ground, and that's the thickness or the caliper of the tree. We have committed to 3 inches, which is a little bit larger. I think the city ordinance is 2 or 2.5 inch caliper trees. So again, we're trying to give a little bit more growth at planting than otherwise would be required.
Thank you very much for that.
And then one other thing that we noted in our language is that we would consult with Judd Scott Consulting Arborists. That's a certified arborist here locally who, you know, we put a lot of trust in. And Judd Scott was actually with us on the site walk on Friday. And was able to answer, you know, certain questions, you know, with the residents, you know, without me present, which is great. And I think one layer to the conversation, positive that I think Judd brings is he would help guide us into what tree species that we would plant. 1, we want to make sure that they live. 2, we want to make sure that there's not a Japanese beetle thing where it's going to come sweep and take out all the trees. So he's going to suggest to us a variety, but also within that variety is you know, how full they get, maybe how tall they get, you know, how quickly they grow versus how stocky and bulky they may be lower to the ground. So he's looking at it from a full big picture screening perspective and not simply what's going to do you the best right in here, right now, today, which may not be the best thing for you 5 years from now.
Well, I appreciate that. I think all those efforts are definitely appreciated and warranted in the right direction. I mean, from me hearing from him or hearing from your final resolution on that, I think would be is great. As far as the amenities though, I'll echo, you know, fellow commissioners are saying is that a lot of it seems like the importance of that and giving them, you know, the right options that fit, you know, but I think you guys have done a good job as well in terms of turning this, you know, into a better project and definitely headed in the right direction, and thank you for all the efforts you made to meet with the residents, that means a lot.
Confirming on your fir tree, the 8-foot height is the planted height, not as it's delivered from the nursery with the dirt ball on the bottom of it. Correct. It's 8 feet of actual tree and there's 2 feet of something underneath it when it arrives.
Correct, yes.
Other commissioner questions or comments for anybody?
Yeah, I have a quick one, I'll be brief.
Sure.
It's funny, when this first started, I thought, you know, it'd be tough to get to a spot, right? That I would support this, then you guys have made a significant amount of changes, so I appreciate it, right? At the end of the day, for me though, I as it sits today, I'm not in support of it, and here's why. Mike Neal said something the other day about when the room gets 80% full. I kind of feel like that's how the people that are on the estate lots feel, kind of on a bigger scale from a land side, right? Like, I mean, it's just, we're constantly encroaching, constantly creeping in on their way of life, and again, I love this project. I wish you guys had a spot just across the road that this would fit in, man. And I would love more houses, and everything you're doing is awesome. I do. And if it gets approved, I think that's okay, right? But I don't support it because of the creep onto the existing rural lifestyle.
If I might say another item.
Are you through, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I thought he had taken a breath, I wasn't sure. While he used my words against me, which was a good line.
It was with you. We're on the same team.
It actually has nothing to do with what he said, I just wanted to say that. One thing I'm not for, and I think this is for everybody who's involved, is I'm not for moving of the goalposts on any of these matters. Not that if something comes up that shouldn't sway things as we, you know, come to the finale of this, however it comes, is that the moving of the goalposts, you know, I think we're already starting to see emails come in from folks that are sending us, hey, all 3 options should be what we given, things like that. It's like at some point, not everyone can have everything. And so I'm not saying this to you, I think I'm just saying this in general, that I think the goalposts are pretty well set. We don't wanna see them move. We wanna see as best resolution for everybody as possible, with a leaning in favor of, at the very least, those that already live there. To Chris's point, and whether he supports it or not, doing as much as we can for them as possible without obviously, you know, hurting the developer and hurting, obviously, profit to be made, those kind of things, but you're providing a good product. And so I just wanna kind of say that just in general. I think we've kind of got the stage pretty well set here. That we're gonna get, minus any changes you guys provide, but that, you know, the goalpost, I just don't wanna see them move.
Totally agree. Tonight is the last night that anything new should have revealed itself. From here on forward. We're just talking about how all of the comments have been addressed, and we don't bring up new stuff at the next meeting.
And that was my point of emphasis at the last meeting, is coming into this meeting, we need to know what our deal breakers are, what the goalposts are. Seeing the slide up currently, which is the comparison of what was before us in October versus what is before us now, obviously, this is what it is. The change that happened was just reorientating the trail a little bit, outside of removing additional lots, for instance, the 70 to 74, 75, or any other major changes. That's just not where we're at now. Pulte, for those that might be listening, Pulte has kind of put their place in the sand here, and this is what's before us. So as much as I would like to see certain changes as well, we've discussed this. As Mr. Neal alluded to, that these are concessions now that we have to make in order to accomplish the overall goals that each one of us might be thinking about. So for me, for instance, my goals in wanting to accomplish here are preserving as much as possible, improving the overall infrastructure, and then also, of course, trying to come up with some sort of solution amenity-wise. When it comes to the preservation, again, would I like to see nothing happen here? Yes, but that's just not reality right now. So to have a either 150 foot on one side or 200-foot buffer on the other side, that just for me, it's unprecedented. So that's something that I really have to acknowledge, to going above and beyond of basically a 50-yard buffer. When you have that many trees in between you, it's just not gonna impact very much. So that's something to think about yes, you can think about what you might be losing, but also be thinking about what you are getting. And 150 feet, that is very fortunate to get what you're getting, as opposed to some other developments we've had in Westfield where it's much less than that. So 150 feet, again, I just want to acknowledge that to not gloss over. And then improving the infrastructure. I think majority of us have all driven down 151st here, and it is very much so needed to have some improvements here. With this, you're getting that, and that's always a big point of emphasis for me around our community. Anywhere we can improve our infrastructure, so that's a big plus here. And then just comparing the overall plans, again, it's already been alluded to, from what was first initially before us to what is now before us, a night and day difference. Vastly improved in terms of lower amount of homes and so on and so forth. So again, that's greatly appreciated. Excuse me. And then amenities, I've already acknowledged that. That being a decision with the homeowners, the stakeholders really at play here. I know which one I would personally vote for, but that's not for me to decide.
Yeah, you're not 55, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't live there.
So that will be a TBD, but it's something that will be included within the ordinance here to be acknowledged, that decision will be made, and then for everyone to come to some sort of consensus there. So just again recapping the three items there. When it comes to preservation, we're getting a lot here for what's on the table. The infrastructure being improved, and then amenities. I think three great options that the residents will be able to decide. So concessions being made, yes, but again, this is what's before us, so.
Did you have something else to add earlier, Rex?
I did, and I apologize that I forgot to mention it. As we were talking about the comparisons between the two plans from the last workshop meeting to this one of the things that was noted was at the entryway, how we were able to relocate a lot. Mr. Smith, who I identified in my headlight exhibit, who lives just kind of to the southwest here on the cul-de-sac. He had made mention in his email to the city, and I apologize to him and you all, I forgot this. He asked if we could increase the tree preservation in this particular area just south of the new lot 1. We would be agreeable to do so. I have a call into our engineering team to figure out exactly how much, a lot is 65 feet wide. Can I give you the full 65? I don't know that at this point. I would venture to say that I could definitely give at least 50 more feet of tree preservation in that area, because there is no lot that would prohibit me from doing so. But I wanted to add that to the table before I forgot, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Were you saying reforestation, like where the cursor is, you mean, or what happens there?
Well,
That's just
it's
green
wooded,
space?
no, what's wooded there today.
Just cut less down.
When we took the lot, when we relocated the lot from here to here,
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
it just,
Sorry, I didn't
graphically, it just went from yellow to just the lighter green common area color, which would just be grass.
understand.
What I'm saying is I would keep that as a tree preservation area with the existing trees.
I just wanna thank you for removing that 22 acres of those estate lots. I think that would not have flown, and neighbors have been really upset. I think you've got something here that looks really good, that most people can live with. I do have one question, if this has already been addressed. Why is there no road that connects to, there's only one exit? A lot of times in these neighborhoods, there's road that connects to the next neighborhood. So I was just kinda curious why that wasn't there.
Yeah, so to the north, there is a long skinny shotgun parcel that would prohibit us from getting to what would be 4 larger estate lots that are already platted, or I guess what would be planned for 4 larger estate lots. So stubbing to the north wasn't really an option. To the northwest corner here, where we talked about removing that extension out to Shelbourne, there's a couple of legal drains in that area. Of course, we're not trying to put a road out to Shelbourne, so we didn't do that. I think the west speaks for itself, and then to the east.
That's how I corner to the east.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I went full circle for you. there's no place to do it here. This is a wooded area that backs up to the amenity center, so there's nowhere there. And then there's lots very similar to what you see here. There's lots that are behind or just off the screen from that pond. So there's no good way to stub into the existing Kimblewick, which is why we did a boulevarded entryway, so you kind of have two ways in and out. And then should something happen here, we have that dedicated emergency access here as well.
So then essentially they would have their own amenities for that whole section, cause the other neighbors wouldn't, they'd have to go out to go back in, right?
So the idea, so you can see the path here. This path leads to the amenity center building, which is kind of just off the screen to the east.
Okay.
There's a wooded area. Can you scroll back up?
Yeah, do you
Yeah,
have
I was gonna
that
follow.
shows?
There we go.
Keep going. You just go to the overall. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
So Town Road to the east, this is the boulevarded entryway, this is the amenity area,
Mhm.
so you have some sport courts, the building. This is that wooded area that just sat off of the edge of the page. The amenity area has a trail that goes behind all these lots and loops back around. What we're doing is, and the residents actually wanted a trail connection east-west, so generally about this point, which is kind of by our community garden area, we've actually found an east-west corridor that's on the southern end of this property, which is what we were showing on the concept plan. So with Kimblewick being an active adult community, you know, so these residents will tell you, they say, I walk all 3 miles of these trails every single day. So with this being so active and quite frankly, these people being closer in proximity to the clubhouse than people even south of 151st Street, we wanted to give them a pedestrian connection.
Okay.
So they would still have full access to
So
everything.
for their potential amenity center, is that gonna be wherever they choose, if they give one of those options, or it could be the house or whatnot, but if they choose, they could potentially build something next to that other amenity that would, but actually closer to this side of the neighborhood? Like if they had that $1 million, where would they build it? Is my guess, you don't know.
That's kind of up to
Okay.
them, right? And it was like, hey, we want a building, and it's like, okay, but what do you want and where do you want it?
Mhm.
And is that my decision to make, right? So which is kind of why we kicked the can down the road, quite honestly.
So you're not sure where they could build it on here, and they could potentially have block 1 to do it on?
That would be one option, yes.
It's one option. And is that an option to be somewhere in that middle towards the other amenity, or is that not an option?
You'd have to get
Where's
rid
that,
of.
where's the sales center now? I'm turned around. I
Yeah, go
apologize.
ahead. Yeah.
Here,
Can you
let's
go back
show
to
that.
the top? Yep. So
Right
main
there,
entrance,
something that land to the
which
left
tees
of it.
right into the amenity center.
Yeah, yeah.
A 14,000 square foot clubhouse. Right where the cursor is, there's two lots that, you know, front to the east. There's the parking lot and then what is our sales center, which is one of the floor plans that we actually would build. Right now, it's a temporary sales operation,
Okay, yeah, I'm following.
which typically we would, you know, remodel, convert, and then sell as a home, just like the rest of the community. What we're saying is you can have the parking lot and you can have the sales center, which is a 2,000 plus or minus square foot house, as additional amenity space.
Okay.
But, you know, I mentioned earlier, Omar, you know, here's the tennis, there's 2 tennis courts here, there's 4 pickleball courts here. There's an open area, you know, with like a storage shed out that way. So is there a spot where they could find space for a building? Yes. Am I saying that one of those options is the best place? No.
Right. No, I get that, but there is land to the left of it, it looks like, I mean, from this map, that,
You're talking about up here in this
Yeah,
space?
Yeah,
this is
like right
a
there.
wooded area.
Okay.
Right now, we're, you know, we've ran some trails through it, and then there's a dog park that sits kind of at the back end of it. So, we wanted to make sure that the amenity, going out the back of the amenity where the pool and the grills and
Sure.
the fire pits, that had a nice backdrop to it.
okay.
So that's the way it was designed, but can you? Yes, I believe that you could.
That'll be up to them. Okay,
Sure.
I just wanted to understand from.
It's not a wetland.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
If they chose the, sorry, no, you're good. If they chose the sales center, would they be in charge of having to renovate it to what they want it to be, or TBD?
No, I mean, I think there's a reasonable expectation that we would give them suitable space, right? Am I going to give someone a piece of paper and say, go hire an architect and tell me exactly what you want and everything? No, I mean, I think that we would find a reasonable medium of, you know, have like a kitchen cafe type area, you have an open area that might be gathered towards, you know, meeting space or something like that. And then maybe there's a couple smaller spaces.
The largest room in the current amenity center, how many square feet is the largest room, do you know?
I do not. I know it seats 12 round tables that day to day seat 6 tables apiece, or 6 chairs each. They can fit up to 8 chairs a pop. So capacity is about 100.
It's probably about 1,500 square feet, that one room.
So the sales center was 2 and change, plus or minus, and it was made where they could have a larger space. I think that was the biggest complaint I saw, was they didn't have anything big enough for maybe wine club, or I'd like to join the bourbon club in the email, I think that'd be awesome. I'd be a contributor, but that was that's just, the reason I was going down that path is, would they get something that was bigger than what they currently have, which was one of the items that they were concerned about.
Kinda like Victor, I don't think you meet the.
I don't meet the expectation.
I do, so for the right price, I'll maybe move there and
Okay, you
I'll
can-
invite you.
Oh, what a guy. And not to go much further down that amenity trail, since that is a discussion that they will have to ultimately decide on. But it was mentioned in the prior meeting as well, I believe by you, that maybe there's just a realization that since that is a relatively large space, that certain activities might have just outgrown it. So maybe if the $1 million is chosen, that $1 million cannot just be used for improving certain facilities, but renting out other facilities that might need more larger space, such as for holiday events or the wine club or whatever like that. So different avenues that can be gone down, that possibly the current space might be maxed out, because even if building on top of the tennis courts or whatever, it might still not accommodate everyone there. So just have to be thinking about all these creative solutions of how to accomplish what those living there might want to see.
Please, you raise your hand, I did it.
I cut him off,
Somebody go ahead and jump in.
So, coming in tonight, I appreciate it, I read every email. I appreciate the write-in meetings several people in this room had with the neighbors. A lot of good feedback going back and forth. So coming in tonight, I was thinking about compromise and in no particular order, work around kind of the lots 71 through 76. So I think we talked about that. As much as the future amenities, the current amenities, lots of emails around that. I think we've addressed that. Tree preservation. Dr. Keen, your comment about the lot premium comments and Rex, I appreciate you answering that, but there were several emails around that, just lot premiums and whatnot, so what I hope we walk away from tonight is good talking points, but taking a lot of the what ifs out of this as we leave tonight, between recommendations that we have here, compromises, and you've got a lot of passionate people in this community, which I think we all appreciate, and we all read those emails. And anything we can do to compromise for both and build something nice for the future is my end goal in all this. The amenity thing, my only comment on that, my only worrisome part on the amenity is depending on where you would put it. So if it was the sales center or if it was the tennis courts, you would have to leave the second phase in order to get to it. I don't know, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of walkability around there and I respect that, but that's just one thing that comes to mind as I think about it.
One of the things we looked at, and this is when we talked internally about, and we prepared kind of a radius exhibit that showed that all the new lots in this phase 2 are actually closer than the majority of the lots south of 151st Street. So from a proximity standpoint and how those people interact with the amenity facility exists today, there's existing buyers that are selecting home sites that are in this area of the development down here.
Yeah.
That are further away from the amenity facility than the lots here that are gonna be developed in this phase over here. From a proximity to the existing, from a proximity standpoint.
Sure, no, and I appreciate the clarity on that, it was just something that comes to mind is I'll just be here to see feedback, right? And I think that's why you're given 3 options, but I'm sure we'll hear feedback.
Yes, we will.
Thank you, I know a lot of work. I appreciate you taking time walking the neighborhood and all that, so.
Billy?
Echoing sentiment, I appreciate the collaboration, the concession, the partnership. I mean, to your point, in the development world, some of the buffering you're giving is unheard of, quite frankly. This is more of a comment for you as Pulte, as a community partner, as we go beyond this project, is in the night where we're using Mike Neal's words against him. Moving with him, moving the field goal post. I would say I feel like a lot of sentiment I've heard is the field goal post hasn't moved so much as you keep opening up more playing surface, right? And what I mean by that analogy is you come in with your utopia, as you should, you have to profit. Maybe as you're thinking more holistically of the plan for Westfield as we move forward, a lot of this can be mitigated by, hey, what is the concession we can already think of in our head, right? Because it feels like along this process thus far, it's been, oh, sorry, you don't like that, but already behind door number 2 is this, and behind door number 3 is this, right? It's like playing A, B, C, D, E, F, and now we're on G. Hey, it makes sense. And so again, don't take that negatively or in the wrong way, right? But just as you're thinking more of the community partnership as we move forward, how can you be more intentional with that initial rollout is just something I would request. That's all I got.
Very good. Any other questions or comments before we ask staff for a recap? Can you recap us?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of discussion, a lot of great discussion, a lot of back and forth. Really the only takeaways, I guess, for the petitioner and the representative are really just crafting the PUD language for the amenity stuff. Essentially was really the only major takeaways coming back to an eventual recommendation. Also possibly adding in language to increase the tree buffer where lot 1 originally was. That was discussed as well. But yeah, a lot of other comments that I don't know are super, I guess, constructive for coming back to, I guess, for additional revisions or original.
And we'll add the discussion that the landscaping provisions that we discussed about the additional enhanced.
So the exact quantities and things of that nature.
Spots.
Okay.
Information on that would be helpful.
Especially for that berm.
There were 3 areas, the 2 areas in the buffer and the other area on the
Okay.
street frontage on the south
That's
side
right.
of
Thanks, John.
151st Street.
Okay. See you at a future meeting.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Recommendation after we hear whatever you've done as a result of tonight. So we'll switch people at the south end of the room and move on to the third and last.
John Shaywitz gets to stay. Gets to do it again.
So we'll switch some of them. Woodwind East, 2409 PUD 22.
Thanks for keeping it warm for me. You want this or you want me to keep?
Good night.
You too, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Of the revised concept.
Didn't sound good.
Announced for me, John, just so we can
Can you
set the
pull
stage for you.
up
Cheers, we
exhibit
get some
5?
workers' comp tonight.
Really?
Exhibit 5 is the big.
We can have Mr. Crabtree's intro and then we'll hear from petitioner team on what's new at Woodwind East.
Evening Planning Commission, for the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening for workshop is the proposed Woodwind East Planned Unit Development. Approximately 136 acres in size. This is located between 166th and 161st Street to the north and south and west of Ditch Road. Project proposed to have a maximum of 186 lots across 3 districts with varying minimum lot sizes and also incorporates 3 golf holes. Since the project's October 7th public hearing, the petitioner has made revisions to the project, which they will detail shortly. These items, as noted in the staff report, include the golf holes being further refined on the concept plan. Buffer yards, specifically adjoining neighbors to the north and south, have been increased from 30 and 40 feet to 60 feet, as shown on the concept plan. Buffer yards on the north and east sides adjacent to roadways on the 15-acre parcel at the northeast will remain at 50 feet in width. Buffer yards will include a 6 to 8 foot undulating mound with landscaping as generally shown on the concept plan, that language specifically 6 to 8 feet is something that will need to be added to the actual ordinance as it goes forward, but this was noted in an email from Jeremy, so I assume that is still accurate. Landscaping requirements from a tree and shrub count perspective will follow buffer A and B landscape standards of the UDO. There has been a commitment for the buffer yards to be located on common areas and not upon lots, with the exception of surrounding the Berkman property at the south end of the map here, for which mounds will actually be installed on a golf course, which is not technically a common area. And then finally, the amenity area has been expanded at the north end to include a pool and bathhouse as well as 2 pickleball courts. John Dobashewitz is still present this evening, and but Jeremy Lawler has entered the chat and will provide further detail.
Thank you, Dane. For the record, Jeremy Lawler with Old Town. I believe he described very detailed every single chain that we had. But I'll point them out to you. So what I heard from the
Do full screen.
not only the neighborhood meeting, but also the public hearing meeting was larger buffers on the north and the south, at least 60 feet, which we were able to accomplish. We wanted them in common area, we wanted them with berms, we wanted them planted, and then we wanted to look at the amenities to improve those. So I think we've accomplished all that. So you've got a 60-foot berm or 60-foot buffer down here. All trees that are existing will be preserved unless they're dead, and then we'll figure out whose land they're on and figure out if they need to come out. And then we'll be landscaped in compliance with buffer yard B standards of the ordinance. Same up here for these adjacent neighbors. For the reorientation of the golf course, if you recall, there were 2 holes in this center area on the first route, so you would play in, play a par 3, and then come and play down to a green right here. In the design process with the city and the golf course architect, and truly with the neighborhood in mind, we reoriented. So now we have this kind of showcase hole on 161st Street with an island green as a par 3. Then you would then go around, play a par 4 to the north, and then play another par 4 to the south, and then go back across the street. We also expanded this berm here around the Berkman property. So you've got a 60-foot buffer. It is on golf course property, so it's the only one, as Dane said, that is not in technically common area, but it is maintained area by what will be the city. Amenity area, we added, originally we just had the preservation, like preserved naturalized walking trail, plus a playground and a shelter. That was specifically because we were working with the city to determine what amenities that were gonna be at the Woodwind Clubhouse. All of these neighbors will have memberships to the Woodwind Clubhouse. It was believed that there would be a pool put in over there. Since there was not, obviously we believe this is the neighborhood of the size that should have a pool, so it'll have a pool and a bathhouse. I put some character exhibits in the ordinance of one that we just recently opened at another development at ours. I would imagine it being very similar to that in character and size and style. Also giving that the smaller lots in our section, which is the 57-foot, call it empty nester houses, are active pool pickleball players, so we added a couple pickleball courts up there in the area, and obviously a parking lot to accommodate the pool and pickleball. I think that's I think with that, I'll open up to questions or comments.
I will add that there were 2 public comments that we received after the public hearing, one from Ms. Berkman, which was forwarded to everyone, and one that we received, I would say a couple hours ago that I forwarded to the APC, but I will forward that to you now.
Good.
Thank you. Plan commissioners, let's workshop. Don't be bashful, somebody can go
I'll
first.
go first this time. So the only thing that I had questioned about, not a question now, you guys have solved that, it was the amenities portion. Well, I guess technically two, where the golf course, whether the golf course expert, I forget what their position is called, like, yeah, call them something, everything but what they are. The golf architect, golf course architect, you know, had signed off on this, it sounded like that was the case, that
Yeah.
they were set to go with that. But I think the amenities, you know, my point last time was, well, maybe the dad's a golfer and the mom's not. Maybe the parents are and the kids are not. Maybe they move there because the kid's a golf superstar and they're not. And giving them something else to do, was greatly appreciated. And so I just wanted to commend you for that, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you. I'll add to that a little bit. I guess I left it out. So yes, golf course architect is obviously involved. City is involved in that, specifically Matt Deck. And the mayor has also opened up to the community and has created a workshop group or a task force, we'll call it, that of about 9 people that are also all stakeholders in the course or in golf in the community, whether it be golf coach, and they are all a party to that. We actually had a meeting earlier today, and so while yes, this is where we're at, it will continue to get refined. That's why you don't see any real landscaping on there too, because it's all gonna be landscaped in accordance with what the city wants, and then obviously we have a landscape plan coming, but at this stage, it's still trying to figure out what they want.
Yeah.
Same-
On the,
Oh, go ahead.
oh,
I was just gonna say, you mentioned a bathhouse.
Yeah.
So they have access to the clubhouse. Everybody
Correct.
that lives there. So when you say bathhouse, is it,
Restrooms for the
Bathroom?
pool.
okay, is there anything else? Is there like is it big enough to have like a little birthday party in, or is it just restaurant?
Not designed yet, but yes, we're intentionally planning for obviously a couple bathrooms and maybe kitchenette and
Yeah.
like you said,
So you can have an
birthday
event
party.
there.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be a 10,000 square foot event space, but it'll be
Yeah,
a
but
space
it's something to
that can
accommodate
cake and
the families. Yeah.
for sure.
in terms of the landscape plan, this kind of corresponds to what I wanted to bring up. So just little west of the proposal, what was built under the previous development with Woodwind North. When looking at the GIS, you can see that to help buffer between the neighbors to the north, they did mounding, they planted a lot of evergreens, and then also had fence installed as well. And so in looking at that, that's kind of my expectation as we're also continuing on here with the 60-foot. That was also a 60-foot. So the 60-foot here, again, greatly appreciated, but then just mimicking what's already been in place with the evergreens, the mounding, possibly the fence.
Where's that at?
So
Those U-shaped streets.
you can kind of see it. It's
Okay.
those right there.
I will take a look at it. I did not know that existed.
Yeah, so just going off a precedent of what's there, just continuing that, especially along the border there to the northern neighbors. Possible consideration for the southern neighbors as well, that if you're already doing it up there, then just copy paste down there. And then also just on the topic of the northern neighbors, the cul-de-sac there, kind of in my head, I think it would just be more aesthetically pleasing, as well as help the neighbors directly to the west there, that one lot. If possible, removal of those 2 lots that are there at the end of the cul-de-sac, so that way no homes are going further north than the current home, if that makes sense.
Oh, these two up here in the
Yeah, at the end of
that
the cul-de-sac,
section?
yeah. Just to kind of mimic what's already there, not having any homes going past where the current home is.
Keeping the same setback from the existing homes, from the estate lots, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, keeping the same setbacks, but also just the 1 or 2 lots that are there at the end of the cul-de-sac, not having, like their backyard
It's gonna be their front yard.
in their front yard, exactly.
Okay, we did adjust that. That was originally a buffer yard A. It is now a 60-foot buffer B with a berm. They got a pretty heavily wooded tree line there, but my friends at Fisher's, those would be specifically in their section, so I will talk to them to see if
Yeah, and can we,
the
just for
finances work for them if
clarity,
that lot goes.
when we watch back the video, can we point out where we're talking about So,
Yeah.
right, these
That-
two.
No, is it just those?
Yeah, just those two, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just wanna make sure that we got that down. Thanks, good call.
You know, obviously, we're never in favor of losing lots. We've lost a couple already, but we'll evaluate it.
I have a question. Where did what three holes go away?
Not completely determined yet, but right now, at least, it is 2, 3, and 4 on the south side. And that's still in flux until.
Just reroute the stinking creek. Get rid of that thing.
That's really hard. Really hard.
Did that affect any, I know there was, I forget the gentleman who was at the public hearing. He said, I'm on hole, I don't know, it could have been 15, I'm not even making that up.
He's in the back, yeah.
He's in the backside, but if you say 2, 3, and 4, it's a potential that it wouldn't.
No one that is on a golf course will not be on a golf course.
Okay.
So we're not impacting any
Got
course lots. Now, there will be a section of homes where those holes are, very likely.
Sure.
So they will still be on a golf course, but their view will change. I don't think it'll change for the worse, but it will change.
But it's possible they may not be on the hole that they were on.
The whole number very well might be different, but yeah, they would still be on the same hole that they're on.
Got it, okay, so I understand.
So the three that
It
are
took me a second,
impacted,
I'm
there
there.
are no homes on.
You were thinking of the guy from Woodland South, that's like in the core.
Yeah. He was concerned that what
in
was
that-
gonna get deleted in order to.
It's like the centralized subdivision.
Yeah, no, I understand that, thank you.
I have a question about the golf hole next in the center. How far away is that fairway from the backyards?
Here?
Yes.
So our target is 150 yards to the center. This one's obviously like 300 yards. So in here you're
Yes.
trying, but
The ones to the right.
yeah, it meets the golf course architect's requirements of what he typically would design to, which is why, one of the reasons why it kind of got reoriented and the par 3 came down to the road.
Yeah, I guess my only thought is it's a public course, and so you're gonna have a lot of hacks out there.
Yep.
But are.
She means that.
It's not gonna be nice.
This just turned into the House of the Lords real quick.
So I just wanna make sure there's enough room, so there's not gonna be broken. I live along Town Road, and there's golf balls and on the long way all the time, and,
It is a heavy emphasis on what we are
safety.
designing to.
okay, just concern for safety.
And-
Those people who buy the house know the golf hole is
They're
there.
gonna know that,
And
yes.
they're gonna pay a little extra to be there.
Yeah, especially all those beer drinking golfers. Okay, I was just making sure, I was curious.
So the borders on the perimeter borders along the existing large lots, what is that treatment between,
Between the
like
pink
down
and
at
the
the
yellow.
bottom?
Oh, here?
Yeah, all the way across there.
Yeah, that is a 60-foot wide buffer with, so you can see the berm kind of undulates, that's to avoid the mature trees that are there. But it is a planted berm as well. Landscaped and planted to the buffer yard B standards.
And one of the things that were mentioned when during the public hearing is just the fear that people might come across that berm onto the farms. Is the berm gonna be thick enough to prevent that?
We met out there, or I met out there with the neighbors, eventually it will be, everything matures after it's planted, but it will be the taller of the berms, so it'll be about an 8-foot berm with, call it 6-foot trees on top of that, maybe 8-foot trees on top of that. If somebody really wants to get across it, I assume that they'd have that ability,
It wouldn't be a place for a fence though, or anything to.
My
create
only
an
concern with a
additional
fence,
barrier.
and that was a request that was made, was we would like it not to be a straight top mound. We want it to change and have some character to it. Doing that with a fence, for that length, gets over a little over 1,000 feet, gets difficult, but if that's a requirement of this group, then we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
I was gonna suggest there could also be a concern with fencing if there's gonna be a required perimeter drainage easement around the property too. The Public Works Department might not want fencing in their easements, so consideration. Jeremy, you know better as well as anyone about that.
And I think too, I mean, this is the type of home that you're often gonna see individual fencing, I think, in the backyard of a lot of the homes. That I think will then be butt up to the berm and the demising point.
Agreed, and that was something we considered with the amenities as well, is generally speaking, this price point of home, they provide their own amenities in their backyard. So we just don't wanna create something that the HOA ultimately has to pay for and maintain for the next 50 years that doesn't get utilized. But we do think pickleball will, and we're really hopeful that the pool house does as well.
Just looking at the GIS again, since we're on the topic of a fence, again, the only place I've seen a fence is on the northern portion of the woodland north between them and existing neighbors.
Is it on the top of the mound, or is it?
It's at the bottom of the mound, and I think that there's only a fence there because of drainage. Because there's some gravel and stuff there, that's kind of fenced off. But anywhere else on the property, I'm not seeing any fences.
You're saying it's on the rear lot line of the new homes, Victor?
Would we be able to bring up GIS, please?
It's in common area, it's not on an individual lot.
Yeah, it is on common
And
area.
it doesn't go anything other than east to west as as Owen Drive starts to curve, that fence ends. We're talking about what was to the west of what we were looking at a moment ago.
Where are you looking at?
Right where it says D and Wood,
So
north.
west,
Right there.
and then
Right at Owens Drive at the tip.
yep,
You just
north
went off
of
the-
north of Owen Drive.
And drag it down a little bit,
Right there.
that east-west property line up there.
Yeah.
You can see there's a fence right along there.
Yeah, so that's the only fencing.
And that's
I
more
found.
floorboard.
Yeah, it looks like floorboard versus fence.
Perfect for keeping golf balls where they belong. Wait, no, not actually.
So you look out and somebody's climbing your fence.
So I don't know where that might be appropriate with this development, but more so than anything, just to previous point of continuing the mounding and trees that are already being utilized there, so.
Other questions or comments for anyone?
Can you remind me the price point that's going into these homes here?
The average would be about $1 million. The yellow, these, my guess is we'll start at 1.4. This custom ranch product, they start at $750, but really usually land $900 to 1.2, at least the ones we build. And then the pink is Fisher Masterpiece, and they're average of 900. So
Gotcha, thank you.
On that note, I'm gonna echo the same sentiment I said the last meeting. Number one, I think my only comment was buffering and very well received. And to me, it is incredibly exciting to have private course amenities on a public course and private course homes on a public course. And I appreciate the work you're doing.
Very good. Are we ready for a recap from staff?
Right, so as mentioned in an email to you earlier, Jeremy, adding language for the 6 to 8 foot undulating mound within the PUD requirement. Also in a prior email, looking at section 10.1B specifically, just to clarify the language of what that's trying to convey, and if the requirements need to move around to make more sense in the ordinance to do that. As far as the bathhouse thing, I maybe consider, I don't believe there's anything in there today about a minimum square footage. So in order to, rather than require bathrooms plus a room plus whatever, maybe setting forth a minimum square footage for the bathhouse to convey what can be built in there would be good. Consider with Fisher removing the 2 western lots of an area C of west of the cul-de-sac at the north end. And then in the email sent by Ms. Berkman earlier, there were multiple suggestions, and I know you've been working with her as you go through this process, if there's anything of consideration in that email that would be something agreeable to, adding that language into the PUD about the property specifically. I know there's, as we mentioned already, about the common area and the mounding around that, that's already in there. So if there's additional considerations, just adding that language to that section of the buffer area specific to that property.
I just wanna make sure I understood what you're not advocating for changes, you're just.
Sure, no, I'm saying meet with, I'm not specifically saying
If
that
there are
that
changes,
something must
make
happen,
sure we
but if there
put them
are
in the
changes to be made based on the conversations
Yeah,
with
I
the
didn't, I
residents,
just wanna make sure everyone
to add
understood,
those in.
but I wanted to make sure I understood what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understood what you were saying, Dave. Very good, well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Put the study as you were. Yes.
Are you done?
The business, do you?
Nothing I can think of. It's safe for the.
Is there anything else on the agenda? I'll get out of here. Really, slow you down.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sister came in my shop the other night. Sister came in my shop the other night.
December.
Which John?
As of now, we have
See you later.
one
So do
item
my other
for,
sisters.
Oh, of course, your whole family, sweetheart.
as of now, we have one item for our December workshop meeting. I doubt there's anything else to see on there as well. Taking us now to reports and comments, anything from plan commission members for each other? If not, city council liaison.
Yeah, last week, we had a rather large agenda in terms of the projects being considered. But first, we swore in 2 new firefighters. We had a comp plan update from Long Range Planner Caleb Ernest, and a recommendation from the audit committee on the company we were choosing. We chose Forvis Mazars, I believe it.
That merged.
Yep. And then under old business, we approved the Maple Knoll PUD amendment, which was the school transportation facility turning into a maintenance facility, and the Lions PUD. Both of these we saw at our prior APC meeting. Under new business, we adopted an additional vendor to the DORA list. We heard the introduction for Park and Poplar, that's there across from the library at, that would be on top of the temporary lots. We'll be seeing that next month at our first meeting. And then Grand Universe was also introduced, a big project that we will also be seeing at our first APC meeting next month, so. That is all, thank you.
Thank you. Was there a BCA meeting?
Yes, there was. Oh my goodness, it was so exciting.
Tell us all about it then.
I live
Leave
7
no
blocks,
detail
I live
unspare.
7 blocks away from City Hall. It took me longer to drive there and drive back. than the meeting. However, we did have one item, the development there in downtown, they were asking for larger banners to be able to be put up on the building, larger than permitted by statute now, and we approved that. In fact, we approved it, I think, on a permanent basis, and the city's gonna have, so if you wanna advertise, the opening of something or whatever, you could drape a large banner down, or if the city wants to advertise the opening of the ice rink, or, the farmer's market or something like that, so the 32 side banners can hang down. It'll be there for advertisement purposes, so.
For clarity, I think the banners would be on the rear.
Is the rear?
Facing
Grand Junction
away.
side.
Yeah,
The
Grand
Grand
Junction
facing the
side.
Grand
Yeah.
Junction?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then there are just a couple of other signs that,
but
for parking and stuff like that, that don't meet our current code. Cause we really don't have mixed use building sign standards. This is really our first true mixed use building in 100 years, so.
Hopefully it will be the first of a number of them.
Yeah, well, especially with Park and Poplar, but yeah.
Really.
And I will say that I'm not sorry I missed the last APC meeting.
We really
I understand it
missed
was
you.
very exciting.
Yeah,
It's out there on
congrats
YouTube.
for missing it.
You'd have loved
Plat
it.
committee, met.
Actually,
Three of you.
ironically,
I know.
I did wanna make one statement real fast back up to the plan commissioning world of plan commission member comments. Is it too late to add?
Sorry, should've
Sorry.
not done
I
that.
thought we were gonna be done, so I thought.
Should've done that sooner.
Yeah.
I was waiting, but
He was going with her.
Yeah, sorry.
matters into his own
Hey,
hands.
Hard to hear.
I did, like, my first stint was 4 years on this, and I took 4, and this is my first year. And I was telling someone the other day how unbelievably proud and intelligent and well-spoken all of you guys are. And gals, I'm sorry. And I feel like this is the best group of people I've ever served with, and there was a lot of great people, and I just wanted, a lot of times a lot of criticism pours in, and I'm really proud of this group for what it's worth.
Thank
And-
you, sir.
And our staff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for saying that.
It was good to
I
go back
think we're
to.
all worth it.
Sorry.
That's a good closing.
That's a good, I had to interject that.
Was that a positive
Better
note?
closing.
You're really great now.
This is our last meeting before Thanksgiving, so thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
it was very thankful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
grateful. I'm grateful.
Each other.
That's cute, very cute.
Plat committee did meet. We had one very tiny item to address that we really worked hard on to try to make it as difficult as we could, but I felt kind of strongly that it was on Ravinia, where if you can think of 166th Street, just north of our last item up here tonight, there's a street that comes out, and then there was a street that went east and west paralleling 166th, and it was intended to continue on into Ackerson Farm, now Midland. Except they're already so far pushing dirt around that there was no connection that really was gonna be possible. It got so far along that they just figured they needed to just connect it to 166th Street. So it was an easy approval in a way, but I felt, cause I see so many of these things happening where you've got two access points relatively close, and you come out of one and you've got an accel lane. And then immediately there's a decel lane for the next one. And a lot of them occur because there's a development and nothing happens. Then there's another development and each one has their own connection point, so there's no way to tie them up. It's like, can we guys just widen the road there and eliminate that? So I don't know what Public Works is gonna think of it, but the way we approved it was, we'd like to see that, but Public Works can veto it and we'll be okay with that. It doesn't have to come back. So just to make sure, we look like we're paying attention, I brought that up. Anyway, that was it. Do you know if there's anything coming to plat for December?
Not that I'm aware of right now.
So we may be off till the new year, essentially, so, yeah. All right, Community Development Department, any words of wisdom for us?
Yeah, I just had one comment to pass along from Mandy, our administrative coordinator manager.
Yep.
When the quorum email goes out, just try to respond to that as quick as you can. I know it's around the holidays, so we do have people in and out, and we wanna make sure that we can have a meeting, so.
Is there a text
Yeah.
option there if we don't respond within like,
Yeah, if you,
is there a way to get,
any
I
way
mean-
that you can respond is fine.
or if to receive the email? Honestly, I'm not an office person
Yeah,
all day,
no.
every day, so I'm out a lot.
But texting works
You
better.
can get email on these things.
I did, I just choose to ignore them.
Oh, the truth comes out.
There it
Here we
is,
go.
yeah.
I'm with Chris, I always remember Sunday night, and I'm like, oh, she wanted it Thursday.
Yeah, so if texting works better,
Tuesday.
send Mandy an email note and we can
Okay.
just add you on a list to send a text to, because
That'd be great.
we just wanna make sure that we
Yeah.
have enough of y'all here to pull this off.
Yeah.
So, it's been close a few times, so.
It has been bothersome on a
My
couple of
only-
occasions, looking
So the
around
two
at
no reply,
5
I'm
to
like,
7,
oh.
thinking, there's
Simple
only 4 of us,
request
are we gonna
is,
be able to do this
On
or
the
not?
invites that they send to the calendar, can they have the actual address on there? Cause sometimes I'm coming from somewhere else and then I gotta navigate it on but I'm already driving and
Yeah.
like, it's, it's just a small thing, but like if they could have the actual address of where the meeting is versus just.
I think
the
when
name,
they
I think-
turn on the Teams meeting portion, it just assumes it's gonna be a whole Teams
That's
meeting.
probably what
And
happens.
it takes that address line
Sure,
and makes it a
sure.
Teams meeting. So I do it all the time to my team, and then I have.
Cause I just wanna be able to click on it like I do all my other appointments and like navigate straight to, where I need to be,
I'll make a note for that.
please.
All right, I think we've solved
All of the problems.
So many world-class problems.
These people are
here,
waiting
haven't
for
we?
us.
No,
So,
it's not too many machines that move like this one.
we have a motion to
Ah,
adjourn.
second.
Come up.
I got you. I was ready to go home more than you.
Who seconded
I
it?
got him. I did.
Oh, you did the second.
Competition here between the
Yeah.
seconds.
We're all here. Everybody in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining from adjourning? We are adjourned.
Abstentions from adjourning.
8:55 PM.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
be home taking my nap. Have a great week.
Thank you, have a great week. Are you going somewhere, or you got family coming in for holidays?
My in-laws are